Welcome to Newshour. Iran has strongly condemned the latest US sanctions on several organisations in the Iranian oil sector, whilst also rejecting the prospect of any talks at all with the United States. Tonight we talk to Tehran and take a temperature check on what's happening inside the Trump administration, including that highly controversial AI-generated video about Gaza. Well, let's go to Tehran now and speak to the analyst and commentator Touraj Shiralilo. Touraj, thank you very much for joining us there in Tehran. Very strong words from the Iranian Foreign Ministry. Just take us through exactly what's been said.
Thank you, Guy. Thank you for having me. What happened was that last night, United States government imposed a number of sanctions on Iranian vessels and individual entities that it said are involved in crude oil trade with Iran. And in response, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman strongly condemned these latest round of sanctions on Iranian oil industry. Basically, nothing new has happened. It is for the past 46, 7, 8 years that the United States is sanctioning Iran, and Iran is objecting, condemning, and slamming such moves. But basically, this is a new round of crisscrossing or new round of flip-flopping of reactions between Iran and United States. What happened was that Iranian spokesman said that such sanctions are against national sovereignty of Iran. They are violating Iran's right of free trade with the world. They are violating principles of the United Nations Charter, and that they also violate Iranians' human rights because of denying them of the profits of out of such transactions. Therefore, this is not a new development, but a development in a series of developments as Iran and United States remain at loggerheads and relations remain strained between the two countries.
And Touraj, there's been a statement, of course, rejecting the possibility of talks on this matter of sanctions. What is the thinking here, the strategy on the Iranian side?
Yes, it was Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi who, after the meeting yesterday with visiting Russian Foreign Minister, Mr. Sergei Lavrov, said that as long as the United States is maintaining its maximum pressure policy or maximum pressure campaign against Iran, there is no room for negotiations. So in a sense, Iran has let the door ajar. Iranian Foreign Minister didn't say that we will not forever not negotiate with the United States, but put a condition there that as long as such sanctions are enforced and they're kept in force, imposing them on Iran, there is no room for such negotiations. And again today, when he was asked again after coming out of the cabinet ministerial meeting whether there would be negotiations, he rejected that. And again, when he was asked whether Mr. Lavrov was carrying a message or wanted to do any mediating role in between, he denied that and said that Mr. Lavrov was not mediating. Why this such a rumor or is getting prevalent or circulating among media is that last week, Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim, was in Tehran. And as you know, Qatar is on very close relations with the United States, and it is hosting a U.S. military, large U.S. military base on its soil. And again, the same uh, hunch was that maybe he's mediating. That was again denied. And when Mr. Lavrov visited Iran yesterday, this is coming in a very new scenario. Exactly 7 days ago, last week, Mr. Lavrov and his U.S. counterpart met in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. So the hunch is getting stronger and stronger that perhaps these countries that are in close, friendly relations with Iran, I mean Qatar and Russia, are trying to urge Tehran to soften its tone, its rhetoric, with regard to negotiations with the United States, give concessions and receive concessions in return. But at the official level, this has been denied. Mr. Arakchi said no, as long as this uh, policy of sanctions, harshest ever sanctions on Iran, are enforced, there would be no negotiations. But I think the door is ajar. It's half open. Perhaps if such a détente happens between Tehran and United States, or United States wants to lower its pressure, perhaps such an opportunity will be there.
Now, Torej, as well as being an expert on Iran, I know you also have a PhD in American studies. Can I therefore ask you to look at things from the other side and give us your analysis on what you see as the current US strategy when it comes to dealing with Iran?
Sure. Um, it seems that, first of all, uh, Mr. Trump's administration is going back to its former policy of maximum pressure on Iran. That's true. In his first term in office, he exerted this policy. Uh, he withdrew from the uh, joint nuclear action, or the nuclear deal with Iran, which was signed in 2015, Iran and world powers, including the United States. And Iran, in return, uh, withdrew from its uh, commitments and started uh, enriching uranium at higher levels. What happened during President Trump's first administration was that United States assassinated top Iranian general Qasem Soleimani in Baghdad, and Iran unleashed a barrage of missiles at the U.S. base, Al Assad base in, in, in Iraq. At the same time, through this imposition of sanctions, incrementally and uh, gradually, United States lowered Iran's oil export to 200,000 barrels a day in 4 years or so, when Mr. Trump was leaving office. But with the Democratic president in office, Mr. Biden, although the nuclear deal was not revived, JCPOA was not revived, and it wasn't recited, but Iran managed to increase its oil export to figures like 2 million, 2.5 million barrels a day. Unofficial figures say so. So Mr. Trump, in his new round of uh, office, I mean, taking office, has said that we'll try to lower that oil production, or oil export, I'm sorry, to something like 100,000 barrels a day, and to exert pressure. For what reason? There are, among U.S. analysts or people who are watching uh, United States developments, there is a saying that Trump 1 is different from 2. He is a very intelligent, or he has this sense of businessman's intelligence, and he wants to break a deal with Tehran through exerting pressure, and at the same time sending teams or sending delegates to Tehran to negotiate a deal. The same old carrot and sticks policy, what they say. Why why Mr. Trump is trying to do so? They hope that, number one, the reason that he wants to direct his country's resources, diplomatic, economic, military, whatever, toward China, toward Far East, because of the this harsh competition with China. And number two, through another détente with Russia, something unprecedented happened last week in Riyadh, that the U.S. Secretary of State uh, and the Russian foreign minister met and discussed Ukraine. Through this détente with Russia, again, wants to do the same policy, achieve the same objective of directing such resources towards China. So they believe that this time around, Mr. Trump wants to reach a deal with Tehran through both exertion of or imposition of sanctions and at the same time a backdoor policy of sending um, negotiators, let's say, or mediators to reach a deal with Tehran. And the outcome, the end result is that with a détente with Tehran, a Middle East will be safer, with less tension, and secure shipments of oil and gas will be sent to the international markets. And Mr. Trump will focus or spearhead his pressure on China.
Very, very interesting indeed. Mr. Shiralilo, thank you very much indeed for your analysis there in Tehran for us. Well, let's get more on the US perspective and speak with Ubay Shahbanda, who joins us now from Washington. Ubay, what is your assessment of the current situation then when it comes to US-Iranian relations?
Well, the Trump administration has reimposed what President Trump calls his maximum pressure campaign on Iran that's designed to pressure Tehran from stopping its underground nuclear weapon development and its intercontinental ballistic missile production program. So what happened is that on Monday, the U.S. imposed a new round of sanctions that is meant to bring Iran's oil exports to China and other consumers down to zero. That is the White House objective here. So the U.S. Treasury Department and the U.S. State Department are putting pressure on these tanker companies in the United Arab Emirates, in India, and other countries, what the U.S. government calls Iran's shadow fleet, basically unregistered oil tankers that Iran is able to use to export and sell its oil despite U.S. sanctions. Now, the Trump administration has heavily criticized, of course, his predecessor, Joe Biden, for essentially easing those oil sanctions on Iran. And the argument here from President Trump is that that has enabled Iran to continue underground and undeclared nuclear weaponization work. Now, President Trump has said that he would be happy to negotiate with Iran to actually bring back normalization of relations between the two countries based on the condition no nuclear weapons. So clearly here, the White House does believe that Iran still has nuclear weapon ambitions. Of course, the Israeli Air Force has destroyed most of Iran's air defense capabilities following that massive airstrike that happened last year, including one facility that American and Israeli intelligence believed to have been a secret covert facility being used by Iranian scientists to develop the necessary warhead that could then be outfitted on an intercontinental ballistic missile that could then be fashioned with perhaps a nuclear weapon. That is what the Western intelligence believes. That one undeclared site that was destroyed by the Israeli Air Force, that was the intention. Of course, the Iran strongly depends on its oil exports, particularly to China. And by imposing another round of sanctions, including secondary sanctions, what the U.S. government, the Treasury Department, based on a presidential memorandum that was ordered by President Trump in early February, they're essentially trying to starve Iran of its main source of revenue to try to pressure Tehran to give up its what the Americans believe to be its underground nuclear weaponization work. So we'll see how that develops. That's certainly going to significantly impact Iran's economy, because those fleets of tankers are essentially Iran's lifeblood when it comes to oil revenue. And President Trump has vowed that he wants to bring all that oil down to zero to try to force the hand of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei.
And Ube, it's been yet another event-filled 24 hours for President Trump-related news. There's been the launch of the gold card concept to fast-track wealthier immigrants. And of course today, the now infamous, controversial and somewhat shocking AI-generated video about Gaza.
And in other Trump news, we've seen, it's every 24 hours, there is something to report on. So we would be amiss to report on this AI video that was just published on President Trump's social media earlier, where it apparently shows an AI generated video that was produced by a third party, by another account that doesn't seem to be affiliated by the White House. Of course, President Trump has reposted it. What does it show? It shows Trump Gaza Hotel, sort of an AI generated vision of what President Trump has called in his previous speech, the Riviera on the Mediterranean, that President Trump would like to own Gaza and rebuild it and produce these massive hotels, and what in President Trump's vision for a Riviera. And apparently this AI generated video seemed to have captured that vision. It shows President Trump, Elon Musk, and Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel sipping on some drinks on the beach in Gaza, a rendering of a Trump Gaza hotel. It looks kind of like Las Vegas, everybody dancing and being happy. So it's unclear if this is a tongue-in-cheek video that President Trump is posting. He does like to post those and have a little fun, or this is perhaps indicative of what President Trump would like to see the future of Gaza. Of course, Gaza right now is entirely rubble, entirely destroyed. And we've heard, though, from President Trump on a regular basis that he would like to see the U.S. own Gaza and be responsible for completely transforming it to bring jobs. It's an AI video of what a Trump rebuilt Gaza could potentially look like. Obviously, there's a little bit of fun here, but when the president of the United States of America posts these videos, the whole world certainly takes note.
They do indeed. Obey Sharbanda, thank you very much for being with us in Washington, D.C. Well, that is all we have time for on this edition of Newshour. Please stay with A News for more news and analysis. And from all of us here in Baku, thank you for watching.